Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
What? It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor. With one taste of our premium blends of all-natural ingredients, herbs, and spices, you'll fall in love with meat all over again. Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce collection is made up of 2 zesty flavors, original and spicy. There's only one way to bring order back to barbecuing. Just add Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce and seasoning, and you be the judge.
I was about to say hi, but I was muted. Hi everybody. Happy Thursday. So welcome to Man Up Thursday with me and Judge Joe Brown. He will be up here shortly. Testing 1 2 3, guys. Let me know if you can hear me. Little couple announcements. I come on to open up the show. We know the judge has Pony Express Wi-Fi, so it takes him a minute. He is logging on. And today we are going to be talking about multiple topics. We do have 2 special guests that I'm going to bring up first as soon as the judge gets here. And they have a case that they're bringing against Netflix, pushing back against how can I put it, negative imagery of Black culture, i.e. the new Good Times Netflix show, right, which is pure trash. So I will be bringing them up. Mrs. Kimberly Arnold and the Grand Negro. And I've been familiar with the Negro from X Spaces for a little over a year. So they're going to be up. We definitely have to talk about Governor Kathy Hochul out of New York State, honey, with her stupid, ignorant, bigot, racist comments saying that Black kids don't know what a computer is. Really? But y'all keep voting. Y'all keep voting that blue, honey, that liberal blue. Of course, we got to talk about Georgia Election Board. They found flaws in 300,000 votes that weren't accounted for. So that was breaking news, came out of that. I uploaded a video yesterday. If you guys got a chance to watch that, Donald Trump won an appeal to seek for Fani Willis to be disqualified. So check that video out. We have to talk about all the corruption that's going on in Fulton County. And today we're going to talk about the Georgia Election Board. A hot mess. And I'm pretty sure that's not the only county, the only city, the only state that have this type of corruption. But we are focusing first on Fulton and Fani. And then the main event, because, we have other things that I'm going to throw in there. Canada free speech is about to be thrown out. The Boy Scouts, they're changing it to Scouts of America. But the main topic tonight is about Marilyn Mosby. She was convicted. She was found guilty on perjury and some mortgage fraud stuff. And she is going to be sentenced in a couple of weeks, this month, I believe. And her, she can receive up to 40 years. I doubt it if she's going to get 40 years. However, should she get a pardon from Joe Biden? She is on a press tour right now because the gag order was lifted. She had a gag order placed on her for a couple of years. She could not talk about this case. So the gag order has been lifted since she's been convicted. And she is pushing and hoping that the Biden administration, that specifically President Biden comes in and give her a pardon. Only he can. Now, we all know this man sometimes don't even know what day of the week it is, right? Well, we're going to talk about that. The judge, the judge is going to walk us through her case. Of course, we have to bring up the Freddie Gray case because she made headlines nationally because she was the DA prosecutor out of Baltimore, Maryland in 2015. She was head of the Freddie Gray case. And, she was making a very genuine, authentic effort to make sure justice is served. So I do want to kind of touch on the Freddie Gray case, right? Because it's tragedy. By the way, all the officers were found not guilty. And, and I want to bring up the Breakfast Club because she was on the Breakfast Club yesterday with Angela Rye. I think Angela Rye made her case worse by insulting the judge and the judge's credentials, basically saying that the judge's she doesn't have experience in a criminal case. She was basically been a litigator or something. Why are you, even though Marilyn Mosby did not say those things, why would you say it publicly and you're sitting right next to the defendant? And this woman is about to be sentenced by this judge who just so happened to be Black. And by the way, the U.S. District Attorney and the special agent from the IRS, they're all Black. So all these people in all these powerful positions are Black. So it's not a race thing. So yeah. I see the judge. Thank you. Glad the Wi-Fi is working. Did LA Pink have her press conference? I don't know. I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure she would have sent it to me. I have to reach out. I'm actually going to have her back on. Guys, please hit that like button, share this video. Hi to everybody on X. Please repost this on X. If you have a question or a statement, it's better if you send it via super chat, because that way I can see it easily. Because I have to focus on what we talk about on the show. I can't really focus too much what's going on in the live chat. But like, and share this video on all your social media outlets. And I see the judge. Oh, I like that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yes, honey. JJB BBQ barbecue sauce. You and them damn headsets. They messing up already.
No, they're not. I can hear you. You cannot giving me any lag or anything.
You sound like you in the Matrix, just a tap, just a little bit.
Well, okay.
Now you sound fine. Now you sound, just leave it alone. Now you sound fine. Don't touch nothing.
Okay.
Don't touch it.
All right.
Is it a delay for you to hear me or no?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. All right. So we could start.
All right. Here we go. Loop de loop.
All right. So
what happened? You were hearing the Matrix bit because they flipped off. So I was hearing you through the cell phone.
Okay.
Okay. We can do this.
All right. So we have a guest. We have two guests. And I'm gonna bring them up. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves. The premise of what they're going to talk about is their case that they're bringing towards Netflix. I believe I had mentioned this to you last week, because they were supposed to come on Monday, but I had to push it to Thursday. And they have a case going against Netflix for the Good Time show, but I'm going to have them explain it. But you remember the Negro, he always comes in your X spaces, and he makes a lot of points that you do agree with. So yeah, so it's him, and it's his I would say colleague, Mrs. Kathy Arnold. I believe she is in law school or finished law school, but she does have a legal background. So, but I'll bring them up and have them introduce themselves. So hi.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, it's good to see you both. Thank you for having me on.
How's it going?
All right.
I like your music. Your intro music is slamming. And nice background, JJB. I like your background, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All
So
right.
I want you guys to introduce yourself. Ladies first, Mrs. Kimberly Arnold.
Yes, I am a law student. I've been a law student for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm currently the plaintiff in the Netflix case. I'm also a victim of the very thing that actually doesn't agree with Netflix and the way they actually created the new Good Times. I personally am a victim that's wounded by the creation of the new whatever they call this junk that they got out there, that I decided that I have an issue with it, so I'm going to take it to the law.
Okay.
And
Hello.
go ahead.
Hello, my name is Roland Dunham. Um, my profile is the Grand Negro Black Knight. That's one of the positions within the organization. With that being said, I support Sister Kimberly on this move in this venture. I think it's something that's worthy of fighting. I've been sitting around in different X spaces, hearing some of the concerns from some of the elders, all the way down to people my age and younger, about this propaganda that's being pushed on our community. So I sat back, we discussed, and we saw some of the things, and we weren't really pleased. We felt it was very detrimental. Some of the things that I was concerned about was the woman, they had one of the characters with blonde hair. Black women fought hard for the Crown Act. They fought hard for certain things to have their hair natural. And it's offensive for them to put that out there and digress that in 2024 after women fought for these type of things. We fought for these things as a community, as a collective as well. So that was one of the things that concerned me. The other thing that concerned me as well was the crack dealing child. With the wake of Trayvon Martin and other gruesome killings that was done by police against our children, the last thing I want to see is a image like that that's weaponized against our children in that manner where they can be targeted. So these are some of my concerns based off of some of the things that I saw. And I have nephews, I have children around that age. So these things are very impressionable on our children. And I think that we should be fighting for our image, no different from any other group. We have that right.
All right. So what made you guys want to bring this? Is it a lawsuit? It's a lawsuit, correct?
Yes, I filed a lawsuit, and it's Santa Ana County of Los Angeles. And the purpose of me personally getting involved with it was a couple of things. Is the statement that was originally made about the creation of the reboot of Netflix, I detected that it was a lot of deception in the algorithm of the creation of the Netflix. You can't start a conversation off saying that you're going to reboot the original Good Times, and it turns out to be, such a debauchery that was made to the consumers. And it was just basically, to me, from what I perceived to be defamatory and mixed with some propaganda in an animation kind of concept that was assaulting. And personally, it really triggered some, experiences that I had back in those days with my mother, who was, raised in the Jim Crow time period. And we experienced the redlining specifically, and we were victim of redlining. So Good Times were, a opportunity for us to overcome those social issues, those racial injustice. It was a time for us to kind of, feel like everything is going to be okay, and then to, see it. My personal experience, whether they knew it or not, to be displayed in an animation. It was definitely a time for me to take a closer look at what was the real reason why they actually created, the animation series in the way that they did.
So where does this? Where is the lawsuit right now? Do we have a court date? Like, did Netflix respond? So where is it at right now?
So yeah, we have actually filed the summons and a complaint. It has went through the basic proceedings where we have a case number. The actual court date and appearance is going to take place on September. I'm going to leave it up to the Negro Knight to put it out there. We do need some assistance with the process serving. That part, it still costs no matter if we have a fee waiver or not. That part still costs, and so I believe the Negro is making that part of the public aware that we are looking for some support in that area. But the case date is actually August the 9th, I believe, or maybe September. I think it's September the 8th. I'll take a closer look at it and keep you abreast.
Also, the other thing is I would like the community at large, even your friends that might be not be from the lineage as well. We want everybody to fully engage in this project, because if they sign up off of the change.com partition, that the proceeds of them participating will go to the people who signed. If they're taking on risk, they deserve to get rewarded for taking on those risks.
Well, I would be a little bit careful with that part because it is a victimization
Victimization,
fund in
I
there.
think you should.
Yeah, it is a victimization fund written inside of the complaint. But again, it actually depends on the award. It actually depends on whether the judges actually can see that it's plausible for those funds and award to actually be issued based on a petition, which the petition, those who signed the petition, is we did write it in there for a cause that the consumers were actually concerned about the about what was created, that they expressed that it had nothing to do with the good times of the 70s, and that's the deception of it. It was very targeting, and it was very harmful for them to use this algorithm in the way that they did use the algorithm, to which anyone knows, if you do math, anyone knows that there's a solution that brings about the correct answer. Well, even if they were making the good time in the way that they were supposed to make it, they're supposed to use a algorithm. That algorithm didn't match up to the original one, so it only leads me to think that it was intentional to create such a debauchery and such a wretchery animated film the way that they did, for it to actually target Negroes, to actually target Black American, and it was actually to be insulting and create prejudice. And I based that based on the algorithm that was used of old and the algorithm that was used with I think you probably know, Seth has made a movie called Families. Well, he used those algorithms to create the product. So if you change that algorithm, then you're going to get a different result. So how can you pronounce to the public and say that you're creating an original film, and you change the algorithm, and you made a statement specifically saying that you did animation to cross the line so that you can be insulting to Negroes, to Black Americans. You can make a mockery of our social issues that we have, and it was just basically what I seen was there a deception in the way that they actually created the animation, and they lied to the public. So that's basically what I see. And in them doing that, I personally, as a consumer, I personally, as a public person, I personally, as a Negro woman, as a Black woman, I was highly offended, and I was emotionally hurt by what I experienced, because it took me back to the 60s. I'm a 60 child. So it took me back to the 60s, causing me to have some real concerns there, and some real, I guess, anxieties. It took me back to the time that my mother and stuff was actually harmed. So I took it personal, and I didn't even watch the series, but I took it personal based on what I've seen.
Also, a little bit about my background. I go to school for investigation work for college. That's what my master's is in. specifically detailed in investigation work. So one of the things that we were investigating and that I was looking into was the creators of it. One of the women that created was a Nigerian woman. The other one was an Afro-Latina woman. They have no connections to the lineage, the heritage, and they're speaking on our people in a disparaging manner with the intentions of causing harm or even forms of genocide. When they're targeting our children, that's a form of genocide. When they're forming salacious propaganda with the intention to incite hatred, these are the things that we should be attacking as well as a community, because we need to be very guarded about our image. It's nothing wrong with that, because people feel it's okay to have degeneracy and for us to be in a degenerate state because they profit off of that. And we're trying to break that. No longer they're going to profit off of something that's the debauchery like that.
All right. So, Judge, do you have anything to say to this situation? Now,
Let me ask a question.
Exactly.
I have a question. Say again exactly how Black folk are getting harmed by this.
Well, if I just start with me per se, Judge, I really don't want to go into tears because I'm trying to stay professional. But when they actually start talking about the 1960s, okay, that was a time of Jim Crow, and you told the public that you were taking. I'm sorry, sir.
Go. I'm listening. I'm just looking back and forth on the screen up here.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So Netflix.
You're talking about in the 1960s, the time of Jim Crow. Go ahead.
Right. Netflix created a statement saying that they were helping the public to realize that social issues back in the 60s will be the same. The way the 60s social issues was dealt with, they will be dealt with the same way in the 2000s. So they were trying to take it back from our time period or my time period to this time period. Well, the algorithm of my time period, when they mentioned my time period, I went back to the time period of depression. I went back to the time period of Jim Crow. I went back to since they've used the word social issues, I went back to the time that social issue actually exists to this particular time, and the algorithm, sir, did not match up. So when you took me back to
this algorithm you talk? Explain this algorithm.
It's digital. It's digital algorithm. So it's a latex.
And it does what?
It helps them create the sitcom that produces the reality or the results that matches the statement in which they put a premise around for them to build that whole reanimated series reflection of the 60s to the 2000, which the algorithms, the calculation of it didn't match. So they just created what we have right now today, and it caused injury to the ones who were in the 60s expecting to see the similarities or the same movements, the algorithm to be the same, that brought about the honorable good times that we associated with, we connected to, we had experience with, that we say, okay, that works for us, that it was a job well done. Versus the garbage.
Wait, time out. Now, see, you're saying you have a class, Black folk, right? Now, you're talking about your mother and the recollect, she was there with Jim Crow in the 60s. Well, I could buy whiskey and vote, couldn't vote until you were 21, had a degree before the 60s were out. And that's not quite the way we looked at it. And as a matter of fact, the more militant segment that I was familiar with, Black Panther Party, Black Student Alliance, Black Student Union, most all of the people that I went to school with, associated with through the 60s despised and detested the original Good Times as a horrible insult to black people. We tried to get it killed too, and now you're saying that's okay?
Okay, so as far as my own personal perspective, because they created the Good Times in a way that the public in itself had a opinion of it. Most of black people in the 60s, I was born in the 60s. There may have been a pushback that I never heard of, but me personally, I liked it to see John Adams, that was actually a father that sat at the head of the household. In my time was something that wasn't, it wasn't normal. I mean, it wasn't of the norm. I wouldn't say it was normal, but it was something that was not of the norm. So for them to have that imagery that it was a two-parent household was a good thing, as far as that part of the Good Times that I see now versus the Good Times that they got right now, Judge. It's the father of the head of the household. He's in the shower singing the Roaches. So how is that even close to the proximity of the John Adams that say, hey, stop playing around, stop joking. He had some structure in that sitcom where there's no structure in this sitcom. So what was the purpose? What was the real mindset of Netflix to actually generate this sitcom in the first place? Was it a real retaliation towards John Adams, who actually left the scene because he said he didn't want
John Amos.
Yeah, John Amos. Thank you. John Amos, who left the scene because he said every 3 pages there was some crack and some joke by JJ or Walker, and he really didn't want the sitcom to be illicit towards making jokes about the things that we're going through. And right now in the day, the animated Good Time does exactly that. It makes jokes.
Look, I've been doing this for 50 plus years. So you got a lawsuit going. When my law office, and most of them I know, had a big case going, particularly when you filed in, is it federal court? Federal court. You'd sit around and go over what's likely to happen. Now, satire. It's going to be pretty obvious that the defense is going to say this is satirical. This is downing what is depicted. It's showing it for what it's about. So our intent is not to insult. Our intent is to inspire people to act in a more appropriate fashion by taking what is glorified all the time, rap music, social media, the way people talk and the way people act down in the hood, so they can get a look at it and see how absolutely ridiculous and pathetic it is, so they don't act that way. Now, how would you deal with the defense bringing up the defense of this is just satire? It's not supposed to be advocated. Now,
Yes, sir.
How would you defend against that?
My response is that would have been fine if the statements prior to them releasing that particular satire analogy, that's not what was said to the public. What was said to the public was they were remaking the original 1970 sitcom. What we got was far from that. And that is the problem that we're having, because it's deception that was in there based on the statement. Now, if they would have just said, we're going to make some, a social issue about the Black community and the debauchery in the Black community, blah, 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 and left Good Times out of it, then I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But now I have a problem with it because you took me back to a time.
I don't want to keep.
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get you someplace.
I want to add a couple.
I'm trying to get you someplace, because what you're going to run into, slam, bam, ton of bricks, is somebody's going to talk about artistic license and satire.
And
And
I
you
want to.
have you. I'm not saying I'm not sympathetic to what you're trying to do. You just are not addressing that right now.
Well,
They're
one of
going
the
to
things.
slam you for it.
Well, one of the things that
Go
they
ahead.
didn't do was they didn't survey with our community to see what we wanted to see. They basically took these
They
images,
never do. That's
but
not Hollywood.
well, the thing is,
They don't work that way.
the thing is, Judge Joe Brown, when it comes to other ethnic groups, they do check in with some of their ethnic leaders of that community to make sure
What
that it's
leaders would they check with?
the thing
Al
is,
Sharpton, Lizzo, Foxy Red. Who are they going to check with to get any clue on it?
Well,
it
they
should.
can start. They could start with the NBNU, which is the Negro
What is
Nation.
that?
The NBNU is the Negro Nation, the Negro Black Nation United, and it's a foreign registration and international registration right here in the United States.
Okay, now who's going to black? If you took a poll of black folk, who's going to say that group speaks for them?
Well, the group speaks for the population of Negroes. It's not for them. I mean, you have to get someone.
Don't speak for me.
Right.
Doesn't
That's
speak
what I'm
for
saying.
me. Dana, does it speak for you?
No. What I'm saying, Judge, based on my birthright as a Negro woman, I can speak for my Negro nationality. I can speak for my concern, things that belong to me. I can speak on those things. And those are the things that I can say, well, I don't want you, I want you to ask me before you start messing around with my heritage. Wouldn't
that be a sea change in the way Hollywood works? It's never worked that way before. So how are you going to compel them to do it?
It worked with that. It worked with the Japanese when they did the Netflix thing. They actually had. He said that he suggested that he would not film anything unless it had strictly Japanese or Asian people that were in his film that spoke the language.
What are you talking about? You're talking about the show Shogun.
Yes,
Shogun.
So they have these things. The
thing
is,
wait, slow down, because he's saying if he's going to be a part of it, he wasn't suing someone because somebody had already created and depicted his heritage. This particular project that he was asked to be a part of, he said, only way for me to be a part of it is if you have Japanese workers and actors, so it could be authentic. This situation with Netflix is the lawsuit is you are portraying Black people in a negative way that is negative towards our culture.
And
now,
the
question that I want to ask, because take your emotions out of it, whether you don't like it, whether you felt some kind of way or you felt it. So take the emotions out of it. Have you addressed or put examples in your suit of other groups of people who have petitions or lawsuits against any Hollywood Hollywood production company like the Paramounts or whatever, when they have created a movie or a show that reflected negatively against their culture, because that will help the case. Have there been other groups? Yes, I'm pretty sure, whether it was Indian or whatever. So have you put in your lawsuit for an examples of other groups of people who have sued Hollywood when their culture is depicted in a negative way?
Well, I did put in cases that has to do with like the Jewish Holocaust. No one targets their past experience and put it into an animated series where it's to be laughed at, joked at, or whatever it is that they call themselves doing. So I did do a comparison there, and I did a comparison with the European.
No. The question is, have you identified a lawsuit that a particular group have brought up against a production company?
Mm-hmm. Netflix is a part of a lawsuit, several lawsuits when it comes down to making movies like this. So there are cases in my case that has identified that Netflix is known for this particular assault against Negroes or Black Americans when it comes down to them making film. So this is not the first case. This is not the first time they did this. This is actually several times they have done and they either dismissed the case or they, you know, they didn't go forward with it, or they settled outside of the lawsuit in itself. So yes, there is cases
Let me ask you a
inside of there.
question. Have you seen School Days?
I believe the School Days were most of Europeans in there.
No,
Is that correct?
no,
No,
it wasn't.
He's talking about with Spike Lee. I know what you're
Spike
talking about.
Lee, and
Okay.
yeah. Did you
Okay.
see that?
No, I didn't.
I've seen it,
Okay.
Judge.
Have you seen Boondocks?
I've seen the Boondocks as well, Judge Joe Brown.
Okay, now how about Bebe's Kids? That was
I've
an
seen
earlier
Bebe's
one.
Kids.
Okay,
but
now how about highlighting Lizzo? How about Foxy Red? How about what they do with that? How about your typical rap video, gangster rap video? Now, what are they highlighting in your typical one? Drug sales, bitches and hoes, prostitution, pimping. So that is ideated. Now, if you apply that principle to the animation, what's going to keep it from being applicable to that? I'm not saying I like those things, but how would you apply it to those?
The thing is not makes it not applicable.
So if your question,
the people that were involved are not from the lineage. Some of the people that are involved are from the lineage. And the thing is,
what?
Okay, so let me answer the question.
Wait, hold on. That one, that one. You're trying to say that in the United States of America, in consideration of such things as the First Amendment and some other stuff, we're supposed to establish a principle that it's actionable if you have someone acting, pretending to be something, and he is not actually of that ethnic group.
So Judge,
Now that's the
Judge Joe
principle,
Brown,
the precedent you would be trying to set. Support that.
Yes. Okay, I will support that by culture. It's called copy culturing. So there is in the United States, there is a law that says that you cannot, I think it's Title 17 under copy culture. I'm saying that a couple of times because you're looking like you don't know what that is, but it is a law called
I'm looking at whether or not it's the law. Refresh yourself, young lawyer, to Marbury versus Madison, U.S. Supreme Court, 1803. What did it say about the ability of an appellate court declaring a congressional or legislative act unconstitutional? See, you're relying upon that act, and there are some severe constitutional questions that are attendant on that act. All I'm trying to do is if you're going to proceed with this, before you get stuck with some monstrous court cost and attorney fees for filing what could be designated as a frivolous lawsuit, I'm just pointing out some of the first impression things you're going to have to address. And I understand where you're coming from, but the problem is that the First Amendment does not concern itself with people's feelings at all. You can hurt the hell out of somebody's feelings, but as long as you are not dealing with the following historically, obscenity, where the predominant interest is prurient with something reproductive or scatological, or there's not a situation with war, you can't do anything about it. You can even,
that is true, Judge.
But
there's nothing in
I
the First
agree. That
Amendment.
is
Now, wait a minute.
that is.
Hold on. I'm just looking at what you've dealt with and presented. There is not even any prohibition under the First Amendment against defamatory speech or writing or whatever it may be, either slander or libel. But it might be civilly actionable, but you can't forbid it being used. There are things like criminal responsibility for the use of fighting words. Now, you have to show damages. You have shown your particular susceptibility to that, but there's a long train of Supreme Court and appellate decisions in the United States that say you cannot hold someone generally liable because there are a few people offended. And that even goes to FCC up until the Bush administration, last one, that said you cannot make a determination as to what's obscene or otherwise salacious and should be actionable based on the least susceptible community who is impacted. It has to be on the national average. Now, considering what's out there, and you mentioned something, young man, about blonde, I just left Kroger grocery store, and two of the young ladies, and they were in their early 20s, who were waiting on me, had blonde hair. So they were black.
Under the
I
consumer,
asked them, go ahead.
but if you consider Netflix to actually be providing a service to the consumers, I'm a consumer. I'm a black consumer, but I'm still a consumer. So under the Consumer Legal Advertisement Act, there the CLR or the CLA, then you have a situation where if the advertisement that you produce to the community, which to buy your service and your product, basically that's what they did, a service and a product that they're providing to the consumer for a fee, is which everyone has Netflix and they pay a membership, then you're now responsible to the entire consumer in which you sold those products and those service for, under the line that the advertisement, which you said was an original making of Good Times, you falsely deceived for the membership that was paid to you, whether it was $14, whether it was $11. The entire community that is a member of Netflix gave them money to produce an original film, and by that, Judge Joe Brown, that's the misrepresentation that I'm talking about that's in the complaint. That is the deception that I'm talking about that's in the complaint. That is the harm that is caused from the deception that was never really their intent to create formulas that was originated from the original Good Time in the first place that got my membership.
This is the judge asking you a question. Listen,
I understand.
Are you saying that the Netflix subscriptions were used to intentionally were delivered, the subscriptions, for the purpose of financing this? Is that your contention? In other words, there was a solicitation. We need you to, in advance, before the product is even finished, we want you to subscribe to it.
Yes, exactly.
Or is
Brown,
it
because
just,
if they
we
had,
want
that's
you
exactly
to subscribe to Netflix?
Yes.
Listen.
Yes.
And they did that
Are
through
you
their
asking this question? Are you saying that they ask people to continue to subscribe because previews, trailers of upcoming attractions will be an animated redo of Good Times? Are you saying that that induced people to subscribe to Netflix?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying. And
are you saying that's the only reason they would have tendered a subscription?
Exactly, because if they had not said that Good Times were made, it was going to be the original Good Time, that they advertised it before they actually put this junk that they got out now. A lot of the memberships that they have, and a lot of expectation that people who enjoy watching the old Good Times would not have purchased that membership and would not have tuned in to see the series that they actually have created if they had not associated the Good Times, the original making of Good Time, was a part of their membership, which anyone can get for $11.99. And I think it was even a little bit more. I think one was $21.
Subscribe.
All right, we gotta start wrapping.
That's the subscription for the Good Times animation is the $11, or is that the subscription to Netflix?
It's $11.90. It's the subscription for Netflix that they offered with the Good Times. So it was combined together. So if did no one,
Okay, frankly, if they had told me that I had to get Good Times old one is a part of my mandatory part of my Netflix subscription, I wouldn't have gotten a Netflix subscription because I almost vomited after 5 minutes or so on average of the old Good Times. I thought it was repulsive. So, are you saying that they offered up front Netflix plus the new Good Times animation, and you pay that up front, and it's not, I'm getting this and I get to decline to take this? But then if you have that, you see, you also set a precedent for this. You advertised this movie with trailers. I saw it at the theater, and I went in and I paid my admission fee, $14.95, $18.95.
Uh-oh, we lost him.
What happened? We lost the
One
judge.
second, guys. 1 second. We can't hear you, Judge. You're gonna have to drop down and come back up. We can't hear you. Every time somebody call him, it knocks out the audio. Drop. No, I can't. I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Dana, the other thing that I wanted to bring about was this anti-Semitic bill that they just passed. They're very harsh or hard on when people are speaking anything about these God-chosen people, quote unquote. So what happens when Black American people are asserting our rights to do that? We get pushback. I thought all is equal and fair underneath the Constitution. So those are just some of the things that I'm observing here, that we do need to be more supportive of this as a people and making sure that our image is protected.
Right. Well, do you have the link to the petition?
It's on change.org and it's on my profile.
Put it in a private chat. I'm not searching because I got to do a show. Put it in a private chat so I could share it in the chat and in the description of this show. So can you put it in a private chat for me?
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that right now.
All right. And all right. So I want to wrap this up. So Judge, do you have any remarks, or I want everyone to have
was I'm just trying to help you out here. These questions are going to come out anytime you do this. Actually, what you're doing is kind of unique. It's not really been done before. You're saying that a form of art, a theatrical form of art, should be actionable somehow because you find it offensive to your individual principles. Now, you list, you see, the way you're presenting it right now, a group of Black people, Negroes, African Americans, colored, original inhabitants, whatever it may be, that are particularly offended, that does not apply to the recognized class of people. And you also are going to have to deal with the fact that somebody dealing with a theatrical presentation is going to say the traditional ways of excluding something are by showing that it is basically salacious and obscene, and it appears to scatological or sexual interest that are inappropriate for a given time audience, so to speak. Now, that being the case, you are not saying this is obscene. You say it's offensive. But the problem with offensive is that the other side is going to be able to come back with a huge volume of proof that deals with precisely what is offensive to you and to me, by the way, in this new Good Times animation, is in fact what is pushed, what is ideated, what is behaved upon on a vast scale that Dana and I have been working to cut back on. But you see, I mentioned a few people, individuals, but when you talk about things that are really harmful, you also have the fact that this kind of harm sells in the marketplace. So because some people don't like it, when these things don't deal with the type of forbidden expression that has been historically established by long precedent, you have a problem. Plus, the other thing that comes up is supposing you have a religious group who is offended by something that is secular that's put out there. Do they get to go in and jump Netflix or Discovery or Xfinity because they put something out that somebody finds offensive? Or what kind of precedent are you setting? Be able to address those questions.
All right,
All
so
right.
I want to give each one the closing remarks because I have to go to the other topic. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, the Grand Negro. You could give your closing remarks.
I will be on X Spaces and others. I will be giving out updates about what's going on with the case and the progress of the case. For those that want to participate, please go on change.org. Please click the link on my page. It will lead you right there, either through a QR code or as directly link, or you can look it up on change.org and you can just type in good times.
They don't know you. Can you send me your social media handles? They don't know who you are. So gotta send it to me so I can put it in my chat and tell people at such and such.
Okay, this is going to be at the Negro Black Knights Heritage Club, and you can at us at I gotta punch this thing up. Give me one thing. It is at
just tell the website. Tell the website and then put the links in the private chat, and then I'll put it on the show. So go ahead.
Okay. You can find us always on Twitter. We're the Negro Black Knights Heritage Club, and you can add us at TNBKHC_Negroes. You can definitely reach out there, and I'll definitely put our link there so you guys can reach out to us for more information.
All right. And Mrs. Kimberly Arnold, your last remarks?
Ms. Arnold?
Cam.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think I was waiting for her mic. Judge, thank you for your professional insight as to the case. I do appreciate it. I will take a look at all aspects of the cause of the case and make sure that it has a sound reasoning to get the results that I'm actually looking for. My personal perception of it is that there's a misrepresentation on the way that Netflix actually received its membership and received support of that whole film was based on the statement that they made, which was based on the 1970s. If they had not said that, Judge, then I probably wouldn't have had a problem. I probably wouldn't have been offended. I probably even wouldn't have watched it because that's not my caliber of entertainment anyway. So, but I did, and from that, I received. I believe I see some evidence that suggests that there's a misrepresentation on the reason that that film was actually created, and it was infiltrated with prejudice. And I'll land there. And thank you for helping me understand my barriers that I will run into.
May I offer you one quick real suggestion? There is a case, basically it would be styled, So You Want to Be a Millionaire versus ABC and Walt Disney. The decision was written by the Ninth Circuit, the entire panel, in 2011. You might want to go through there and see if you get anything out where the appellate courts wound up punishing Hollywood for a long-standing practice that they had that was found offensive to, and in this case, American contract law. That might help you out. It's interesting. The recovery sought by the plaintiffs was initially about $7 million, but the appellate court, to make a point, wound up awarding the plaintiffs $570 million, which is worth about $1.25 billion right now because the interest hasn't even been paid off of it.
All right.
But yeah.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. I am going to share the link.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Dana.
All right. Have a good night. All right. Gotta keep to the 30 minutes.
Oh,
That was an hour. That was a whole hour.
it's
But
another thing. I understand where they're getting. Let's go on to the next one. But sometimes it's like when you get one exemplar, you got to get all of them. And if you're going to take down one, you got to take down all of them. And the thing of it is are you going to be able to generate what you need to take down all of them? But if you get one, that might be foot in the door to get all of them. But the problem is what about the impact on free speech?
right. I want to go to Georgia now.
Oh, Georgia. Do we take midnight train or midnight plane?
Doesn't matter.
Plane now. Nobody rides a train.
Oh, Fulton County reprimanded for double scam ballots in 2020 recount.
But Trump is on trial for complaining that they were doing just that.
Right. Find me the votes. And you gonna put a RICO because he said find me the votes. And you try to say this man was lying. So state election board calls for a monitor in Fulton for this year's election. The state election board reprimanded Fulton County and ordered an independent election monitor Tuesday, finding that the county likely scanned over 3,000 ballots twice during the recount in the 2020 presidential election. Let me see if I can make this bigger.
But you know what is the inference that I get from that? Dealing with criminal minds as a career is that what's going on is Fani and company are going after Donald Trump to conceal their own election law violations. If that is the case, they might be complicit in this double counting of these ballots and skewing the outcome of the election. So what they do is a typical thing amongst certain types of con artist type crooks. It also is a propaganda technique. You flip the script and you accuse the other side of doing what you are doing.
Exactly. The decision on a 2-1 vote resolved one of the last remaining investigations of the 2020 election, drawing jeers from a crowd of Republican voters who wanted more severe punishment against the Democratic county. The case exposed errors in the Fulton's 2020 recount, but didn't indicate any fraud in the election, with Democrat Joe Biden won by 11,779 vote margin in Georgia over Republican Donald Trump. Three vote counts, two by machine, one by hand, each showed similar results. Election investigators said they were unable to confirm that the double scan ballots were actually counted twice in the recount, which was the official result of the election. During a recount, Trump gained 939 net votes against Biden in Fulton County, where Biden received 73% support. Fulton County is heavily Democrat, but the Houston County voter who brought the complaint, Joe Rossi, said that investigators shows 2020 election was flawed, both during the recount and the hand audit of all 5 million votes cast. The state election board last year found 1,000 of votes were double counted or misallocated during an audit in Fulton. So
that's just Fulton.
Yeah, that's just Fulton. So we could not talk about the 2020 election on YouTube for over 2 years. It's 2024. No, actually 3 years.
Yeah, couldn't. And now we find out, guess what? There were flaws and there were more votes to find. So what is he supposed to do? Find me more votes. And the fact of the matter is there were more to find. So he's standing a RICO trial, which is organized crime wherein somebody makes a living or earns a living from criminal activity, which isn't even the case. It's a silly, simple mischarge here. It's not applicable to the circumstances. And maybe it's indicative of the fact that the people that brought this are covering up for something. And we've already seen the rampant criminality, dishonesty, the perfidy, the lies, the perjury, the IRS violations, election law violations for the state.
violation of the canons of ethics for the lawyers involved, and failures as officer of the court. The list is far.
I want to play this clip here. It's about a minute and 40 seconds. Oops, I muted it. Give me a second.
Does the investigation confirm that there are missing ballot images?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know why 380,761 ballot images from Election Day machine count are not available?
We subpoenaed Fulton County for all of their ballot images. We received approximately 518,000 ballot images.
From Election Day?
Those are for the recount.
Those are from the recount, but we have no ballot images for 380,761 ballots from Election Day, correct?
What was subpoenaed was the ballot images for the recount, because that's what this case was about, not the Election Day.
Does Fulton County know why there are not 380,761 ballot images from Election Day?
As with the investigators, we have not been apprised of this allegation. This is the first I'm hearing about it. I have no idea what the basis of that allegation is, and so we would have to. We can't answer that at this time.
Would Fulton County agree that every vote should have a ballot image?
That was the end of that.
Ooh-wee.
And I do have another clip.
And you know what the principle is legally here, even if they weren't specifically asked, the exercise of what's called due diligence would suggest, if not demand, that those images be acquired or their absence determined, and they should have been provided in the exercise of due diligence. In other words, even if you weren't asked, you should have looked this up.
Right. I want to share this one as well.
380,000.
So it says, and this is Harrison Floyd. He says, she lied. This is not the first time Fulton County has heard this allegation, because we made it in court and many attorneys subpoenaed them for the images. Fulton County is refusing to comply to subpoenas.
Yeah. So
Does the investigation confirm that there are
Oh no, this was the same one. I already played this. This was the same one. That was just commented.
Votes.
So yeah, so again, it seemed like every week now something new is coming out.
Don't forget the flood in the arena, when those ballots were left unattended for hours in Atlanta.
What about it?
In other words, flood, area cleaned out, ballots left unattended, 380-some thousand unrecorded ballots that should have been subject to being imaged for inventory backup, and you don't have any of that. It's strange that all these things happen in the county. $7.5 million to eliminate a backlog in the Fulton County Jail has disappeared. $720,000 worth of overclaim for legal fees relative to Wade and Willis seem to have come to the fore. Misreports to the Election Commission of monies that Willis seems to have run through her fingers. So far, $56,000 worth of cash expenditures that were unreceipted that have come to light. And then allegations from Sheriff LaButte relative to the jail, the recent thing about the suicide being reversed because somebody confessed to the homicide up in the jail. Somebody just fell down a staircase, unexplained, not staircase, stairwell in the jail. All of the contraband that was discovered on one particular floor of the jail, that one of the things we've got with the county commissioner backing somebody up on a claim that can't be receipted. So what do we have in Fulton County? And you know, you and I have been talking to a lot of people from Fulton County,
Right.
who have been documenting a whole lot of problems with Fulton County. So if they'll cheat on the money, doesn't it seem obvious that they would also cheat on something like an election, particularly if they maintain power and authority through that?
What's it?
Or,
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signed into law a handful of 11th hour changes to state election administration last week. Some of these changes creates a new process of how counties can remove people voting registrations from the rolls, including if a person has a tax exemption suggesting a primary resident in another district or a non-residential address in a different district. Requires voters experiencing homelessness to register at their county election office in order to vote, allows voters to be removed from voter registration lists up to 45 days before an election. They're also requiring that a Georgia state driver's license number, ID card, date of birth, and last 4 digits of social number or another approved forms of identification must be printed on an absentee ballot, created a cutoff date of 11 days before primary, general, or runoff elections for mail-in ballot applications, a ban on bringing food or gifts to people waiting to vote, restricted ballot drop boxes to 1 per 100,000 active registered voters in the county and used only in advance voting. The legislator moved control over leading the state election board from the Secretary of State to the legislature and allow average citizens to file unlimited numbers of challenges to people's voter registration. So I don't disagree with this. So,
that's where it is in our state, my state, essentially.
Yeah, it has to be strict. Put it like this: I'm for showing your ID when you are voting. There has to be rules and procedures put in place to make sure every vote is counted for.
I lend credence to the accusation of fraud because on a couple occasions, at least one in an official capacity is what in Tennessee is held to be an official election witness. That is, if you are a state trial judge, you can act as a witness, or if you're called in to election proceedings and improprieties. And on at least one occasion in a very significant election, myself and another judge, we discovered some outright wrong in terms of efforts to conceal vote counts electronically recorded and substitute a false manual count that would have shown the wrong person winning. So fortunately, the perpetrators had been observed by a janitor who approached myself and the other judge and told us the CD, he said, y'all looking for a little silver record about like that? Say, yeah, well, some people, I don't want to say who right now, put it in that drawer over there in that desk. I said, well, you'll have to tell us. So reluctantly, he identified the people. The other judge and I agreed that a $250,000 bond per person when it came to election fraud or interference would be appropriate. So we had our uniformed bailiffs go over and get them, bring them over, and said, now, if your recollection, I said it, if your recollection refreshes itself, if we're pointing to that drawer over there, and you go retrieve it, then it was just a matter of drifted recollection. You forgot. If we get somebody over there, one of our bailiffs, to go and we find it, we're setting a $250,000 bond on each of you. And I said, find me the votes. And that's right. They went over there and they got them, came back, and the other candidate won by, I think the total was 124 votes instead of him losing by 92. So I said, find some votes.
Right. That doesn't mean to create fake votes. It doesn't mean nothing illegally for you to go do something illegally. No, find votes. There are ways you could go to find votes. So
in this case, it was to undo some illegal stunts that were being pulled off.
Right. Now, did you hear today that this is Mario on X. He says, breaking, Democrats passed bill to count illegal migrants, elections and Congress at stake. House Democrats have voted unanimously to count undocumented immigrants, including the estimated 11 million border crossers under Biden's administration, when allocating seats in Congress and determining electoral votes. With a 206 to 202 vote and 22 representatives abstaining, the new legislation would modify congressional seat apportionment based on citizenship rather than the total population.
How many times have I said that over the last 3 years? One of the main drivers for that illegal immigrant thing is so that they can get these people counted toward acquiring extra seats in Congress. That's what it's about. And this is it.
Right.
This is just a scam, an outright scam. And see, I have participated where I filled the stuff out in 6 censuses as an adult. 6. And this is the very first time that I have not been asked what my citizenship status was. It is the first time I have not been asked, I'm talking about 2020, the first time I have not been asked what the citizenship status of my parents happened to be. And I said, this is so they can get extra congressmen for California, New York, and Illinois, New Jersey, Philadelphia, or at least not lose any.
So it says here, Stephanie Miller, former White House senior advisor, House Dems just voted unanimously to give illegals representation in Congress and the Electoral College. House seats and Electoral College votes will be added to areas with the most illegals, including all Biden illegals, unless Senate passes the bill. Invasion by design. We've been saying it. I've been saying it ever since I started talking about this illegal migrant crisis, No, they can't vote. They're not going to vote, but it's all about the body. So you're talking about these sanctuary cities. They are in heavily Democratic districts. So that means their district gets to expand. So this is also another form of gerrymandering. So
it's not only gerrymandering, this is stuffing the ballot box, because it's not the ballot box for the elections. It's the vote count in the Senate and the House. Well, in the House anyway.
Right. So they're trying to rig not state elections and federal. So they're trying to make sure that they get to control both the state and the federal, and the Democrats to stay in power.
That's why we need Trump in the president's office to veto some crap like that, so it doesn't have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right. So you have Obama, who was the president who ordered the most drones. Well, Trump will be the president who ordered the most mass deportation of illegals.
I like the latter.
The latter, yes.
They have no right to be here.
No,
They
they don't.
crashed the border. They may be disease carriers. They may be insane. They may be arch criminals. They may be enemy agents. They may be enemy military, out of uniform. And they're already in here to start all kinds of hell if that's the case. And we are generating a mess over there in the Middle East, in Gaza. And you don't think that some of these people that might have an animus toward the United States are you don't think they're not using the opportunity to get over here where they can strike. 911, if that is the case, will be small time compared to what's going to happen.
Right. I want to play this this clip because this just came out today.
Denver Mayor Mike Johnston announcing new funding to help the migrant crisis, but it comes with cuts to many city services, including taking millions away from police. Alicia Acuna is live from Denver. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Dana. $8.4 million will be taken from the Denver police budget. This is to help fund a nearly $90 million aid package to address the city's migrant crisis. And as you mentioned, Denver Mike Johnson is trying to justify this plan, explaining it's a combination of capital cuts like putting off buying new furniture for police, but it will restrict the department's ability to hire for open positions. Johnston insists it will not impact public safety.
So no change in officers that are deployed to the street, no changes in our plan on recruiting, and no changes in public-facing services.
Denver's police chief was also at this announcement. He said the department recognizes the need to be partners in this, attempting to assure folks who live here.
So we were able to make sure that we provide all of our core services without having any impact on the budget at all. Yeah, and certainly happy that we found a pathway to help these migrants that are coming into our city.
Oh, God.
Mayor Johnston says he has no choice, given the influx of migrants to Denver, which at one point was receiving the largest number per capita of any other city in the country. He also blames Washington.
There was a bipartisan bill to do that failed in the House. You know that story. I think what we found at that point is whether we would like the federal government to do it or not, that was no longer a choice for us. It was clear that was not going to happen in this Congress in the next 7 months. So we felt like we had to take this into our own hands to come up with a solution.
And Dana, the police department is not alone. Every single department in the city of Denver saw its budget cut, including the mayor's office. Dana.
And the rec centers, I heard about that one from family back home.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Alicia.
Let's get a reaction from back home. Colorado radio host Ross Kaminsky. Ross, welcome back here. Cut number 2, guys. This is the County Commissioner Abe Layden on the cost of Douglas County, which is, I guess, the midway point between Denver and Colorado Springs. Roll it.
We heard many months ago that 40,000 Venezuelan migrants were being bused to Denver from Texas at a cost of about $120 million to the city and county of Denver. In Douglas County, we are not going to be cutting services to our residents.
So there you have it. And the mayor is saying, don't worry about it. So what's the truth?
Well, you know, the truth is they invited this on us, on themselves. And here we are in this situation. I think last time we talked, Bill, you know, I mentioned it's easy to say you're a sanctuary city. It's hard to actually be one, but the pain got to be so much. The financial pain, Dana mentioned, the rec centers not planting flowers. Now we have the stuff with all of these budget cuts. And even in a city as quote unquote welcoming as Denver, maybe we've been a little too welcoming. The people are getting a little tired of it. I also, just reacting to something in Alicia Acuna's report there, I as a taxpayer, I find it pretty frustrating that the mayor of Denver was willing to spend $150, $180 million as long as he thought he was going to get a chunk of it back from the federal government, you know, from other people's money. It just doesn't seem to me how this place should operate.
Total migrants served by the city since December of 2022. It's a year and a half ago. Almost 41,000, Ross.
Yeah. So I'm not claiming that there are going to be fewer cops on the street than now because of these budget cuts for law enforcement for the removal of illegal aliens. And that's going to be an interesting loss.
You know, Ross, the problem here is that it's not going to stop. I mean, we just saw Mike Tobin 30 minutes ago in El Paso, and I mean, it's
Okay. So I'm gonna get, the reason why I brought that up is it came out that the migrants had a list of demands, right? Denver migrants sent the mayor Mike Johnson list of 13 demands as they refused to clear encampment and move into a shelter. Let me see what are some of these
You know
demands.
what? Let's cut to the chase.
Let me read the demands real quick. The group's top demand was that they cook their own food with fresh, culturally appropriate ingredients provided by the city instead of pre-made meals: rice, chicken, flour, oil, butter, tomatoes, onions, etc. Also, people were not punished for bringing in or eating outside food. Medical professionals visits will happen regularly, and referrals connections for specialty care will be made as needed. All will receive the same housing support that has been offered to others. They cannot kick people out 30 days without something stable established. The city will provide privacy for families/individuals within the shelter. No more verbal or physical or mental abuse will be permitted from the staff, including no sheriff sleeping inside and monitoring 24 hours. We are not criminals and we won't be treated as such.
Yes, you are. You broke the goddamn law of the United States of America, and every son of a bitch responsible for this sanctuary bullshit ought to be prosecuted as a conspirator in a conspiracy to violate the laws of the United States of America. These people are federal fugitives because they broke the law to get in this country. Thereby, they're in the fugitive status, and anyone who aids, abets, gives comfort, or concealment to any of them ought to be prosecuted for violating the federal statutes, criminal statutes that deal with those things.
They said the group also insisted on unlimited shower access without time limits, claiming we are not in the military, we are civilians. They are also issuing transportation for all children to and from their schools will be provided until they finish.
Why the hell are we providing schools for them and we can't even decently educate our own citizens' children?
Right. No separating families, regardless of if family members will have children or not. The camp will stay together. The city must schedule a meeting with the mayor and those directly involved in running a newcomer program ASAP to discuss further improvement and ways to support migrants. The city must also provide all residents with a document signed by a city official in English and Spanish with all of these demands that includes a number to call to report mistreatment.
You know what? I'd invite all of them to join in on this and participate so you could identify as many of these invaders as possible, round them up, lock them up, and take them back across the damn border they came over, or back wherever in the hell they went to. And I'd say put them in military trucks in a military convoy and do it. Don't give them a luxury flight on an air-conditioned airplane.
Right. The audacity. The audacity. And I'm sorry, you know what? Because whether you black, whether you're white and poor, because white wealthy people or well-to-do people, they have lists of demands to their local councilmen. Black people, where are your list of demands to your local government officials? You never bring a list of demands. You have people illegally coming into this country, now don't have nowhere near the qualifications to be asylum seekers, damn sure nowhere near having a green card, but they have the audacity to say to this government, these are our list of demands and you better adhere to them.
And they want showers as long as they feel like being in the water. Screw the water bill. Somebody else can pay for that.
Yeah, and we are all those 13 demands we are footing the bill for.
Mm-hmm.
And they
round them up. Trump, where are you? Please.
Right.
Get on with your deportation.
and they give no F's if we like it or not. They don't care.
And by the way, not on a damn airliner. Get the military some opportunity to do some heavy lift, put some MPs on board the aircraft, and get them the hell out of here and drop them off back wherever they came from, since they didn't go through the stages. I don't give a goddamn if they got some problems back in Argentina or Guatemala or wherever in the hell it is that they might have availed themselves of a claim to about being persecuted. Go back. You broke the law. I have defended American citizens for harboring fugitives when the fugitive was a spouse of 30 years, 20 years, 40 years.
So, all right, I want to move on to Marilyn Mosby, right? And we're going to go over the 2-hour mark, and I think I'm going to drop the StreamYard link. You have time, I hope, Judge.
Yeah.
So, and I am going to get to the super chats. And if you guys you have a question, please send them in via super chat. And probably in like 40 minutes, I'll drop the StreamYard link. So Marilyn Mosby, right? The title, NAACP calls on Biden to pardon Marilyn Mosby, who they say was a Trump victim.
How's she a Trump victim? It was the Biden prosecutors that prosecuted her. It was the U.S. attorney who was appointed by Biden, who was in charge of the office. She was a prosecutor herself. She's claiming ignorance of the law, and hell, she's the head law enforcement official for Baltimore. How do you get, that's like, oh, Fani, I forgot. Fani, chief prosecuting officer for part of Atlanta. She didn't know about the Fifth Amendment.
Well, this is the thing. So Marilyn Mosby, if people are not familiar, she was the young prosecutor who took on the Freddie Gray case back in 2015. Now, all those officers, black and white, were found not guilty. And I personally admired her wanting to seek justice for Freddie Gray. And I believe what do you call it? Not vigilant. Yeah, vigilant.
No, what I looked at.
A vigilant effort. Did I say that right?
Diligent effort.
Genuine effort to convict these officers. We cannot say that they are killers because they were found now guilty. However, I believe that they should have been held guilty. But ever since then, right? She has been quiet. There has been a lot of negative press about her. And then around 2020, it was a case that was brought up against her for false mortgage applications and perjury, which is what we're going to get into. So she was this young, bubbly prosecutor in Baltimore fighting for justice for her constituents. So it's just like fall from grace.
For justice. I kept up with that case. It was clumsily, ill-prepared, and she didn't have the necessary scientific proof to do what she did. She was doing it as a sop to the BLM thing back when. So I don't think
BLM wasn't in existence then.
Yeah, I know, but it was the BLM thing that came into existence. It was a thing that got exploited, but it was a political sop using the criminal process, which is inappropriate. That's what the Bill of Rights is supposed to be against. I'm not defending the police per se, but it was a weak case. It wasn't well researched and it wasn't well presented. And you have to understand that in Baltimore, an extremely large percentage of the jury pool is black. So when she got this thing, you can see that reflected in the ethnic characteristics of the people who went after her. So
So let's talk about the case she got convicted of. Defendant convicted on one count of making a false mortgage application and previously convicted on 2 counts of perjury.
See, what happens is under the mortgage plan she was dealing with, which is similar to several others, you cannot borrow the money to make a down payment. You have to attest under penalties of perjury that you have the money that you're using for a down payment on hand. I had clients, and I defended on that issue, where the accusation was that the client loaned somebody the money, or the client borrowed the money to acquire the home place or the property, when the attestation was, I already have the money, I don't need a loan. And they even prosecuted at least one client of mine. It was a horrible thing. I wound up walking him after 3 trials, where they had a series of mistrials. He was prosecuted essentially for allegedly loaning somebody the money for the down payment, which was just $250. Now, in this case, what the allegation was is that she borrowed the money to cover for borrowing the money. She handed it over to her husband, who supposedly then gave her a gift, or not a gift, a disbursement of marital funds in the amount of the $5,000. She already had a Florida property. Now, she lives in Baltimore, Maryland, but she had bought a Florida property, and she was buying a second Florida property, a resort type property. All right. So she took the $5,000, she borrowed it, she gave it to her husband so he could hide the fact that it had been given to him, and gave it right back to her, but they caught her. So that's essentially what they're into this for. It's not illegal for the husband to give the money to the wife, because that's not a loan. But she borrowed the money according to the allegations.
Mm-hmm.
And the husband was just to cover. Meanwhile, the husband seems to have had some financial difficulties, and he didn't tell her about them, and she didn't discuss with him, apparently from his statements, what she was up to. So they have since gotten divorced.
Right. So it says here, Marilyn Mosby trial, Nick Mosby testifies he kept tax problems from ex-wife. So if that's the case, he's not charged with anything.
No, he's not, because he didn't loan the money. He just turned over what he thought were marital funds. He might have been complicit, but then again, see, thanks to Joe Biden, Eastland, and Byrd, you have some interesting things in federal law that allow that. One of these trials I talked about, this guy who claimed he had nothing but a second-grade education, and he was totally ignorant of what was going on, and my client loaned him $250. Well, it turned out that by the time of the 3rd trial, we'd found out more information. He wasn't a second-grade dropout. He had a master's of business administration from Virginia Union University, where he graduated pretty much at the top of his undergrad class before getting the MBA. And he bought his first house at 19. He had 146 properties that he had fraudulently misrepresented that he was going to be the occupant. There were Section 8 houses. He collected the rent from the tenants that were already in there, got the federal subsidy from the government, and he paid no mortgage payments for varying between 14 to 23 months on these properties. They got foreclosed against, but he had a series of sham corporate entities that absorbed the liability and not him. The government knew this, but because the defendant that I was representing blew the whistle on the Reagan administration, they didn't care. So they went along with the so-called victim's lie that he only had a second-grade education when they knew he had a master's of business administration degree. They went along with the fact that he had never done this before when he testified to it, when they knew good and damn well it was a situation where he had 142 houses currently where he had perjured himself on acquiring them. And guess what? It was another one of these situations where it was, we talked about it yesterday, one of these lady prosecutors who was so anxious to beat me that she wound up doing what? Losing her case. Because she didn't deal with what she had to. In fact, she didn't have the case, but winning was so important that she concealed her witnesses' perjury.
So should Marilyn Mosby be pardoned?
No, I don't think so. There's a Dr. Carmen Johnson who deserves a pardon from Biden way before her, who up in Maryland got caught up in a mess with Soros, the governor, and some people in the the Obama-Biden administration. She exposed what they were doing. This was back with that bundle mortgage fraud bit. The only reason she got out of the penitentiary is because they discovered that they had a female inmate who was getting taken to the emergency room every 7 or 8 days, and it turned out she was being tortured trying to get her to rescind her accusations against Obama Biden friends. So now the situation is they need to look like they're doing something, so they should probably pardon her.
Okay. Well, I want to share this because Marilyn Mosby, she had a gag order all this time during the case. So after she was convicted, the gag order was lifted. And so now she gets to talk about her side. She's saying she did nothing wrong. She's not taking accountability for anything. She's saying that she's innocent, so she deserves a pardon. So she was on Joy Reid. I just want to play this clip. And then I want to talk about her appearance on The Breakfast Club because her sidekick, Angela Rye, I believe she said something that would definitely do harm when it's time for her to be sentenced. So let me just play that.
As one of the few Black state attorneys, Marilyn Mosby took a number of political risks during her 8-year tenure. She moved to decriminalize sex work and marijuana. She established programs to provide nonviolent drug offenders with alternatives to incarceration, and even started one of the country's only youth and prevention departments. But it wasn't until after her push to prosecute the officers who killed Freddie Gray that she found herself on the other side of the courtroom, convicted of fraud for withdrawing funds from her own Baltimore deferred compensation retirement account, something 739 other city employees, including 3 people who worked in the same agency as Attorney Mosby, did during the pandemic. Yet she was the only one prosecuted and now faces up to 40 years in prison. Marilyn Mosby joins me now. I guess the first most obvious question is, how are you doing? This must have hit you like a Mack truck.
I mean, first and foremost, I'm blessed. And so thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's still an incredibly sobering moment, right? I've done absolutely nothing wrong, nothing illegal, nothing criminal.
This was your money. Was there any public money involved in this transaction?
No, absolutely not. This was not, despite how I've been vilified, when the gag order was in place and I was unable to defend myself. It's just not PPP loans. This is not a COVID relief funding. This was the money that I was putting away every 2 weeks in a retirement savings account. And I was advised I could withdraw from this fund. There was, the person that testified, the government witness, got on the stand and said all I needed to do was suffer a $50 adversity.
Right.
And I had more than a $50 adversity as a result of COVID. So I didn't even take the stand once that came out, right? And it's like, obviously, I'm not going to be convicted. I know that this was politically targeted, and it was sobering.
Talk about this, because you do say that you've been targeted, and why do you think that happened? Because the thing that changed between you indicting those officers in the Freddie Gray case, and this is the president changed, the Justice Department changed, and Leo Wise got a lot more power. Talk about that a little bit.
So, I mean, I think that you've kind of touched upon all of it, right? Like when you look at the policies that were being implemented, not only did President Trump say, I need to prosecute myself, but 2 months after, Larry Krasner from Philadelphia and I called him out in the Washington Post, they started this investigation.
And who was Larry Krasner?
Larry Krasner is a Philadelphia district attorney.
Right. And so there is a sense, I think a lot of people would be shocked that, the Murdoch, the guy who allegedly killed his son, is facing 40 years. They're trying to sentence you to 40 years. The sentencing is on the 23rd of May.
It is.
What do you want to see happen? I know there's a petition asking President Biden to pardon you. Is that what you want?
I mean, I think that that's appropriate. I mean, I think I don't believe that I know that I've done absolutely nothing wrong, nothing criminal, and to be separated from my children for 40 years as a result of withdrawing $90,000 of my own money, it just makes absolutely no sense. It's illogical. And so, I want the people that I fought for. I fought so hard, first generation college student. They're trying to take my law license, as in an emergency petition, an unprecedented move. I want this justice system that I fought so hard to equalize and to balance the scales of justice, where the business model is based off the backs of Black and brown people, for the people that I fought for to understand and recognize that I need them to fight for me, not because it's Marilyn Mosby, but because something like this goes beyond Marilyn Mosby. If they can do this to Marilyn Mosby, who had the audacity to challenge the status quo, they can do this to anybody. They can do this more specifically to those prosecutors that have the courage and the gall to challenge the status quo in the way that I did.
And the reason I think it stands out is that you did have, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, dismiss two prosecutors he claimed were George Soros progressives. There is this sort of, Bill Barr railed against you by name and others, saying that what you all were doing, disrupting the system in favor of the incarcerated, was destroying the system, and you all needed to pay for it. Do you feel that that you are part of that?
I mean, he made it very clear in February 2020 when he addressed the sheriffs of America that these rogue social justice prosecutors, we will do anything by any means necessary, whether jurisdictionally or any individual politician that comes in the rule of and goes between the rule of law. And so that's exactly what they have done, right? They've targeted me. And as I stated before, this is a 4-year-long investigation where they've combed every aspect of my life. We're unannounced, going to people's homes, my neighbors, at 5 o'clock, the FBI knocking on their door, intimidating folks. They issued subpoenas to all of the Black churches in 5 months before my reelection, not only to get me out of office, but they've done this to demonize me and to vilify me and to break me psychologically, break me professionally, break me spiritually, break me financially. I've lost everything. I've lost everything.
And meanwhile, one of the officers that was involved in Freddie Gray's death is now going to oversee the Baltimore Police Integrity Unit. I mean, that does seem to be a message. You have 2 young children. They are preteens, so 13, 15. How are they holding up under all?
I mean, this is.
And you're a single mom.
I'm now a single mom. I filed for divorce of a 25-year relationship as a result of the chasms that were drawn between this. But they're not 3 and 5 years old no more. I can't shield them from the negativity. Children have come up to them and asked them and said, that's why your mom's going to jail, right? They've been traumatized through all of this. But the most sobering thing, and I got to just say, I'm so grateful about all of it, is that God has still covered them. Right? They're still prospering despite the trauma that's been imposed upon them. More recently, my daughter had a cotillion
to go as hard as you did. I mean, vacating nearly 8
to see what it looks like to face adversity and to have strength in the face
of you did. I mean, vacating nearly 800, criminal cases. You advise people.
I mean, justice is always worth the price paid for its pursuit. I would not do anything differently. And I know that God does not forsake the righteous. And so, I know he will.
What's he doing? Damn, well, we can hear you writing hard. What is that?
I'm making notes.
Okay, well, can you write on your lap?
Nope, I can't. It won't.
Why not?
It just won't write. I know I have a hard thing. I'm writing the notes. That's okay. I'm writing. All right. Now, I just took some notes. I'm about to laugh off of this.
Well, you're going to laugh some more because it's a quick clip that I wanted to play when she was on the Breakfast Club.
Do you know what she did? She did
Fani Willis here. She hasn't been sentenced yet. First off, she's not going to get 40 years. That's the maximum you can get under the guidelines. And by virtue of the fact that she was the district attorney, she does not have the prior criminal record that would ramp her up to the top of the guidelines. The guidelines give little leeway to the judges, not. She's appealing the way she's appealing, but if the prosecution presents this, and as a prosecutor, she ought to know better than to do what she's doing on the Breakfast Club. Here is the problem. If you want relief from full service of the sentence, you have to show remorse. I'm sorry for what I did. She's holding herself out as a victim, which does not show remorse. She says she's done wrong. Even if technically you have been found guilty, but you didn't do anything wrong in your heart, so to speak, you're supposed to be apologetic for what you did that put yourself in that position. I didn't mean to do this, but I'm sorry I did these other things that led to this. Now, she not only has not done that, she has shown lack of remorse. Next problem is she confessed to the crime. You see, the program or the plan, the economic plan, yes, it's her money, but there is a penalty to be taken if you withdraw it, because the paperwork is going to show that you may get an advance or a loan, in other words, on what you have on deposit, which has not yet matured to its full value. So that is also covered under the statutes as a no-no. So she just got up here and trying to do what she did. She sort of fessed up to doing the offense and then turned around and said after she fessed up to it, she has done no wrong. So how can you say I did the elements to the crime, but I'm ignorant of it, but yet I'm the chief law enforcement officer and the head prosecutor for a historic American city, Baltimore? You see, it just doesn't make any sense, and it turns it around to looking very, very bad. Judges don't like to hear, I'm a victim. Why did they pick on me to prosecute? All these other people did this. Well, yeah, but there's this thing that you exercise, which is prosecutorial discretion. And we also have the specter here. She was one of these far left prosecutors that Soros is alleged to have picked, financed, and installed in office so they could disrupt the order in American cities by letting criminals loose. And here she is, she's legalizing prostitution in her area, which is not legal under Maryland law, but she declined to prosecute prostitutes in Maryland because they're sex crimes. She also has done a number of things that she went after these police with weak evidence in order to satisfy a craving to see somebody do something against police. If they've done wrong, they should be fully and vigorously prosecuted, but not just because you've got a weak case that you ought to have the experience of knowing as the senior prosecutor are not going anywhere, but yet we find out she's not a senior prosecutor in terms of her life experience in the field. And there are a number of things that might cause people to be irritated, but the fact that Trump, in attempting to deal with this leftist thing that has finally started to show people what it produces, in other words, there are no consequences to committing crime, so what the hell, we might as well do what we feel like, which is contributing to the lack of law and order in certain blue run cities. We see it in Chicago, Los Angeles, Memphis, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, a whole lot of other places. So
right.
it doesn't look good.
Well, this is the thing. I want to play this clip. She was on a Breakfast Club, and this woman here, Angela Rye, I think she made it worse for Marilyn Mosby.
At last week's White House press briefing, you saw April Ryan ask about it. It is on his radar now. And so now you can review the facts. Some of the pushback has been that Marilyn didn't fill out a pardon application. We were initially advised that the pardon application didn't apply to her because she hasn't been through a 5-year waiting period from the sentencing or been incarcerated for 5 years. The president, per the Constitution, has broad discretion on when he can issue a pardon. And so we're going to fill out the application, but also we expect a pardon.
Why do we expect them to do the right thing when, the indictment against you came under a Democratic U.S. attorney, right? It was Eric Barron. And it's been handled by a Biden-nominated judge who is Lydia K. Grigsby. So why do you expect the Biden administration to do the right thing, or Democrats to do the right thing?
She can't answer that. I would say to you this. Please remember that these investigations began when Donald Trump was in office. Please note that this absolutely should have fallen on the Department of Justice to, again, go through these cases. What are they really about? The fact that there are Black appointees doing things that they think will preserve their appointment is not surprising. We have Black folks like that in corporate America all over the place that are like, what can I do to make sure I'm below the radar? That's what it's giving. And I think the other thing that we need to note here is this judge was also appointed by President Obama, but she was in claims court. She has never touched a criminal case before this one. Her very first criminal trial was Marilyn's case. She was not prepared. I'm not coming at this woman's qualifications, but she's a civil litigator. Like, even when she worked on Capitol Hill, I think the other thing that's interesting from a timeline perspective is Eric Barron and Lydia Grigsby just so happened to be working on Capitol Hill together on the same committee. It's called the Senate Judiciary Committee. I just found that out. That to me is also an apparent conflict. So maybe she should have recused herself. There are a number of reasons and grounds for appeal. Maybe you could talk more.
So why is she taking jabs at the sentencing judge?
I don't know, because the sentencing judge doesn't have to be prepared. It's like, as long as you know the rules, that's it. You are the referee, you're the umpire. So what does the umpire or the referee have to do to practice for the ball game? If he knows the rules, he knows what a ball and strike looks like. He stands behind the plate and he calls them as he sees them. So what is the preparation he has to do?
Well,
that's a bogus position right there. Next bloody doggone thing is you have a large number of civil service appointees in any U.S. attorney's office who are there for 10, 15, 20, 25 years total. 5 years, 10 years, I have more respect. 15, because then they get out and they get into private practice, because I think some of the most corrupt people in America are career prosecutors. Something's wrong with you if you stay as a prosecutor for your entire legal career. Now, aside from that, what you have is these entry-level folk or journeyman level folk or just ordinary prosecutors. They started dealing with an investigation under the Trump administration, but the president does not get involved in the day-to-day running of the Department of Justice. That is the Attorney General of the United States, who is a cabinet official answerable to the president, but he does not usually, hardly ever get involved in the day-to-day prosecutions of what happens in all of the various judicial districts in the United States. So we have an Obama-appointed judge, a Biden-appointed prosecutor, and interestingly enough, everybody's Black, and this woman, this little lightweight that I don't particularly like much, because I don't think much of the intellect, this one here. What's going on is she's actually accusing them of a great deal that can be said about the defendant she's protecting.
Right.
So,
Who is sitting 2 feet away from her on a national radio show.
You could say this. Okay, you did not get a conviction. Every one of these cops got acquitted by a jury. And there were no black folk excluded from these juries or the jury. All right. So black people had something to do with the verdict of not guilty. And remember, it's got to be a unanimous verdict of either acquittal or guilt. And if not, you get a mistrial and the case gets tried all over again.
I want to.
So we had black jurors participating in a not guilty verdict, which was unanimous. It was a weak case. So she's claiming that they had a weak case against her that she got convicted of, and she's got to go back for sentencing. Well, the cops complained about the weak case against them that was brought for just political purposes. So what is this whole thing? Turnaround is fair play. What's good for one is good for the other. Sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander.
I want to play this last clip of Angela Rye in this talking point here.
Got the money. That is not a crime. Even withdrawing money from your own retirement account is not a crime. Somehow they've created this narrative, this fictional narrative that makes her seem like a criminal so that they can undermine her legacy, undermine the work that she did as a progressive prosecutor, and shame black women in this role. And most importantly, go after her law license.
What about the perjury charge?
The perjury is related to me withdrawing the funds from the COVID provision. Again, there's
From
no
your
base
retirement
from my
account.
retirement account. Like they have not prosecuted or used this provision for anyone else. As Angela has already indicated, I didn't even realize 35,000 people in America have done the same thing under this provision. The person in Baltimore City, I told you 739 people did that in the city of Baltimore. I am the only person in America that has been investigated, prosecuted, and now convicted.
The thing to know about this too is the perjury is about saying she experienced an adverse financial consequence.
Right.
That is Maryland's to know. And the problem is this judge, again, this is not Maryland talking, this is me. She told the jury to rely on their own common sense. It is in the court transcripts. That's not a jury instruction. She told the jury that it is defined in the CARES Act. An adverse financial consequence is defined in the CARES Act. It is not. It's defined as an adverse financial consequence. And as someone who has written legislation on the Hill, we ain't got time to define everything. So you got to give them what the parameters are for that in the jury instructions. That is your obligation as the judge. The worst thing I think about this is for Maryland to have experienced an adverse financial consequence doesn't mean that her salary took a hit, which is what DOJ was trying to tie. Like, well, you're
Her
still drawing
salary
the same
didn't
salary.
change. Yeah.
Right. But that's not the case. It could be that she had to start taking care of another family member who experienced hardship, who was laid off, who was furloughed. And we all had those family members we all were like.
That's so much bullshit. First off, there are no statutory regulations on the jury instructions. Those are up to the judge. And they have pattern jury instructions that are specifically guidelines. They're not mandatory because the case may not match all of the points in the pattern instruction. And what is up to the judge is to explain the law. And in fact, common sense is exactly what's going on. Like, for example, in Tennessee, they have a thing that says, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are to filter your own observations. You are to filter the evidence and the testimony through your own observations in life. And by the way, that wasn't part of the pattern jury instruction of the state of Tennessee until a certain judge, yours truly, wrote it into an instruction because I did not like the one. I wound up modifying what was on the books, and I wound up being adopted as the pattern jury instruction on beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty, on witness identification, on cross-examination of witnesses and testing the admissibility of the evidence. I wrote the instruction because I didn't like what was going on. The defense objected, but the state Supreme Court said henceforth Judge Joe Brown's instructions shall be the pattern instructions for the state. And for 25 years, they were on the books. because, as the U.S. Supreme Court said in its very first case in 1792, dealing with what is the common law, the Supreme Court of the United States declared unanimously all law in the United States is common law until it is superseded by such law as is passed by a legislative body. What is the common law? Quote, the common law is that body of judge-made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. So when the judge charges it's about common sense, that is precisely what the law says. Maybe not in those precise terms, but that is not outside of what the law is about. And if an appellate court finds it okay, it's okay. Next thing is, yes, she took it out of her funds, but the way it is set up is she suffered a penalty for early withdrawal because she was not entitled to the money at that point, and what it became was a loan to her. And the crime is committed if you take out a loan or another advance rather than using money at hand in an account that is freely negotiable. In other words, if you wrote yourself a check, that's okay. If you withdrew from your savings, that's okay. If you had to modify a deposit account or an investment account to get it out, that's not okay. You're supposed to have the cash on hand for the particular mortgage programs that were involved. I, as aforesaid, have actually had clients that ran afoul of that.
So let me say this, because when I worked for corporate, I had a 401k. You have a retirement plan. Yes, you can dip into your own retirement plan before you retire. Yes, there is a penalty, but you're paying the penalty, you're paying the taxes on it. You're basically paying yourself. So again, I didn't break the law. You don't break the law when you are taking money from your own
That's
retirement.
nothing against that. That's not the law breaking. The law breaking is there's a special category of mortgages that specifically state on the application. And I went through this with some jury.
Okay, so it's the type of mortgage that she
Type of mortgage. In other words, it says you hereby attest under penalties of federal perjury that this money is coming from the following sources.
So the mortgage that she took out probably indicated you cannot use a down payment from your retirement fund. It has
No, you can't. You have to have cash on hand because the intent of those particular mortgages was not to promote insolvency.
Which is why she gave the $5,000 to the husband, and the husband gave it back to her to make it look like it was a gift. So here's my cash.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's what the gist is. So it says clearly on the forms, Now, if you take out typical mortgage, you can borrow the money all the hell you want, no problem.
Yeah.
But this particular type says you can't.
Okay, so it's the type of mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
HUD has something like that. Farmer's home loan, things like that. You can't.
She did not read, and she did indicate it. She was like, she left that up to the mortgage broker. She didn't read the mortgage application.
Well, she's the head prosecutor, and that's a criminal law, and she dovetails in with criminal activity on the federal level as well as on the state. She should have known.
Right, because even for me, listen, I may not know everything that detailed in the mortgage application, but I will be reading it, sitting next to my lawyer. Okay, what does this mean? What does that? You go through each section of the mortgage application, you read through it, and whatever you don't know, you can highlight it, call your lawyer, and and your lawyer would say, okay, you have a question, you have a question on that. I've done that when I have looked into mortgage applications. So if you did not know something, why didn't you consult with your lawyer?
Yeah, and then see, here's this other thing too. Background, you've heard all of this stuff now that's going around. It's being thrown around in all political circles. George Soros and the billionaires buying off these prosecutors' offices by installing left-wing prosecutors who turn all the criminals loose back in the streets, and they keep committing crime. And we read about it where so-and-so who was released without having to post a bond with a long rap sheet winds up killing somebody or somebody's or pulls off another robbery. So people are concerned about that. And that's been a developing thing that Trump was warning people about during his administration, was the influence that certain people who had a lot of money were having on the law enforcement and the prosecutorial process in America, and the negative impact that was having on public safety. So now we see all of the crime out in the big cities, and to an extent, that's part of the problem. So she did get some flack because she was supposed to have been sponsored in getting elected in the first place by George Soros and his influence. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know.
But okay, so now the NAACP has written a letter to the Biden administration saying that we are deeply concerned that the last administration abused their power to advance a meritless indictment against Ms. Mobley, and worse, the current administration, U.S. Department of Justice, ignored the clear political motive of the malicious prosecution against Ms. Mosby. So this is a letter from the NAACP and 14 other groups that are arguing that Mosby was unfairly targeted and convicted after enduring a political prosecution and malicious prosecution of the Trump administration Department of Justice. So they're trying to throw it on Trump and the Department of Justice. And so, listen,
I'm not impressed by that NAACP letter. The same Maryland NAACP letter, there is somebody I know and I've been working with who was a member of the NAACP and as a volunteer was running a program for the NAACP to help people get out from under the consequences of mortgage fraud. Remember 15 years ago when it was going around? And they let her get prosecuted. They let her get scapegoated. She wound up getting released early from her federal sentence because it was complete BS. She needs a pardon, but they aren't writing letters in support of her to President Biden, even though this was one of their officials who went out on a limb for a lot of people, but they seem to be very selective in what they're doing. So they had a black judge, they had a black prosecutor,
a black IRS special agent.
Black IRS special agent.
Yeah,
and
black people on the jury.
Black people on the jury. So we supposedly have somebody black doing wrong because they're picking on her because she's black. Well, somebody black picked on somebody black who picked on somebody black, and then you got the whole 9 yards. So
let me say this. And why would they look into bringing her down the day the Trump administration, if the officers, they were all acquitted? And mind you, these are black and white officers. So they were acquitted in 2015.
Yeah.
So then why? So what's the vendetta then from the Trump administration?
See, there you go. It's just bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was not present at the trial. All I'm saying is it may have been some wrong that this woman was done. A lot of times when you have neophyte judges, they make wrong calls on evidence. They haven't got their nerves screwed up. They don't know what they can do. If they aren't possessed of a long experience in trying that kind of case, which is becoming an ever-growing problem these days since nobody looks at experience. Remember, everybody wants new and improved.
Right.
So that may have happened. I don't know. But the problem is she got convicted by a black judge, black jurors, black prosecutor, black investigator. And she's in a city, Baltimore, which is not exactly lacking in its black population.
Right.
You got a lot of zombies.
Well, according to Angela Rye, these black people just want to make sure that their job is safe.
So was she. You could put that on her too.
Right.
Isn't it interesting when we got a bunch of African-American DAs, now we need daddy to tell us what to do? They can keep looking. I'm not interested in them looking. They can look. I'm sorry they pissed off Justice is now actually blind. Lady Justice is blind. Everybody can get it. Isn't it interesting when we got a bunch of African American DAs, now we need daddy to tell us what to do? They can keep looking. I'm not interested in them looking. They can look. I'm sorry they pissed off. Justice is now actually blind. Lady Justice is blind. Everybody can get it.
Well, you know what? Maybe if we look at Fanny and Letitia and this lady, they aren't doing such a good job.
Right.
Let's just put it.
One more thing I want to bring up, but I want to get to the super chats real quick before I bring up Governor Hochul. Rachel, hi. She said the Simpsons could have been offensive to me, a white person, Homer, an idiot, drunk, Marge, an airhead, brat, a punk. That is true. And married with children, yeah, white people could have got offensive with that. I like when Rachel comment.
Yeah. I mean, so what if some people are offended? I took it when you had me look at the stuff, I took it as satire. I said, it's satirical.
Oh, yeah, I just said it, married with children. She was like, how about married with children and their neighbors? Is that offensive to white people representing us like this stuff? Riffraff?
Hell, you know what? The truth of the matter is, I could not watch the original Good Times more than about 10 minutes without feeling rather nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
And that JJ character, I don't know who the actor is, that was just absolutely embarrassing and ridiculous. That was old time radio style Amos and Andy garbage. That was the worst kind of step and fetch it nonsense. And we find out that on the actual filming or the taping of the shows, there was all kinds of wrong going on with that. And it was not a healthy thing. And I was a grown man when that came out. Matter of fact, I was running the public defender's office in Memphis when that came out. And I was acutely embarrassed by the garbage, the portrayal, the insulting portrayal of black folk as a bunch of bumbling, incompetent, sometimes well-meaning, but mostly slapstick ignorant fools.
Well,
so I didn't like it.
Thank you, Milton, for becoming a member. And yes, thank you, Amazing Disgrace, Valiant. Yes, that's the word that I was looking for. All right, I want to play one more thing with the and thank you, Southern Belle. She put the StreamYard link if you guys are interested in coming up. If not, I'm gonna go into Governor Hochul and her remarks, and we'll wrap it up. Let's see.
Oh boy.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word a computer is. They don't know. They don't know these things. And I want the world open up to all of them, because when you have their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology, then you're really addressing society's broader challenges. Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word a computer is. They don't know. They don't know these things. And I want the world open up to all of them, because when you have their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology, then you're really addressing society's broader challenges.
Well, what's wrong with that when you compare to now poor Jamal? He's known no love.
First of all, black kids know what a damn computer
Wait
is.
a minute. Look. Remember, this is part of the send $19 a month to save a Negro fund, and you too can help a Negro have a better life. See, this is what these fools that love the Democratic Party plantation are getting off into. This is it.
Listen, she was at San Francisco at an economic conference, and she was speaking to AI and technology STEM programs. And then, you know, I guess she's talking about the poorest sections in her state, which would be the Bronx, which is a very poor district, right? Even though it's expensive as hell to live there. But those Black children do know what a computer is. Your phone is a damn computer. How about you just give them more resources, cleaner air, cleaner water in the Bronx, more greenery, you know, more resources.
No, but they keep voting for that.
That's true too.
And that's what I'm talking about. She's part of that $19 a month to the Save a Negro Fund. We have Negroes on our Democratic Party plantation, and we're having such a hard time affording their upkeep now that we have all these illegal aliens who've come in that we've decided to devote our resources to. So it's going to be cold after this hot summer. You know it is. So there's Jamal and Tamika and Lizmo and, you know, Harlot Ho Red, and they may be out there
now
in the winter suffering. So help us to do something for these Negroes. Send $19 a month to the Save a Negro Fund, and you can help out a Negro get through the upcoming winter with love.
Well, you know, she walked back her comments. She says, you know, New York governor regrets saying Black kids in the Bronx don't know what a computer is. You regret it. She was like, right now, we have young Black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't know what a computer is, right? So she ended up apologizing. Of course, Black children in the Bronx know what a computer is. The problem is that they too often lack access to the technology needed to get on track to high-paying jobs in emerging industries like AI. That is what she came back and said. That's why I've been focused on increasing economic opportunities since day one of my administration, and will continue that fight to ensure every New Yorker has a shot at a good paying job. No, you're not, because your focus is for the illegals. What are you doing to make sure that Black children in the Bronx are on track to high paying jobs when all of your resources are going to the illegals? So, you know,
yeah, I mean, there is that. But they keep voting for them. They want them some Master Biden and some Missy Imhoff. Sure do. Yes, they do. They love them. They so good to their niggers. Yes, they is.
So 74% said Marilyn Mosby should so the question is, should Marilyn Mosby be pardoned? 74% said no, 25% says yes, 155 votes. Y'all are so mean. Actually I have another super chat here. Let me acknowledge. Where is it? Yes. Thank you, Ed Bart. Love the show. Thank you. Love you for listening. Appreciate it. All right. I think that's it for tonight. You know, slow night. That's okay. We do good with uploads. Oh, and most importantly, because I love the banner. Loving the banner. Guys, go to jjbbbq.com, purchase some barbecue sauce, or you could go right on Amazon and get it. Yeah. So Amazon or the website is your choice. But get you some barbecue. Memorial Day is coming up in 2 weeks? So yeah.
Get in advance and practice, so by midsummer you can perfect your culinary skills of taking choice meats on an open grill, and you can turn them into masterpieces that your best friends and relatives will love. Impress those around you. Learn how to do it, and get yourself some JJB BBQ today so you can get a jump on the summer.
Thank you. So Monday, we'll go into the Canada Free Speech and Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts are no longer, it is called Scouts of America. And I will encourage every parent to withdraw their kids from the Girls and the Boy Scouts. So, but we'll talk about that on Monday. And we'll talk about Canada eliminating free speech amongst other political. Oh, and also on Monday, I want to talk about Trump's New York case, i.e. Stormy Daniels. So, and others. So yeah, we'll talk about that on Monday. Everybody that sent in a donation, love you guys. Go to the website, therealdatanetwork.com. I have to upload more vote what I say, not vintage. What's another word for vintage? Well, not vintage. Well, I'm gonna upload more videos in the vote section.
Classic
shows of me and Judge Joe Brown from the beginning, from like 4 or 5, 3 years ago. That will be coming this weekend, so look out for that. I will send everyone an email, so go to the website and sign up to the mailing list. And of course, go to Judge Joe Brown, jjbbbq.com, and buy you some barbecue sauce. And you will also get it from Amazon. Anything else? I think that's it. Have a great weekend. Close us out, Judge.
All right, just stay focused. And one thing I might suggest, be stronger. If your feelings get hurt easily, remember the old saying that used to be that I haven't heard in years: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
Bye-bye. Got to go. My name is Joe.
Call me when you can.
Because I'm the one who ran.
Because I'm the one that ran.
Bye.